Before you dive into the Zapped the Past podcast, episode 5, please accept our apologies. During the news and media section when discussing Mario, I state that the launch date for the Nintendo Entertainment System in the EU was October the 18th, 1985, when in fact it was actually September the 1st, 1986. Also in the same section, sometimes AD refers to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES, instead of the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES.
Hello and welcome to Zapped to the Past. My name is Adrian Mills and I am joined as ever by my good friend and co-host
Graham Raddings.
In case you don't know, this is a podcast that focuses primarily on games that were released for the Commodore 64, whilst also taking a brief look at what was going on in the UK back in the 1980s. There were thousands of games released for the Commodore 64, so to bring order to this chaos, we are using the magazine Zapped 64 as a monthly guide for the games to focus on. Just one last thing, we are in no way affiliated with Zapped 64 itself. In this episode, we will be looking at the games reviewed in issue 5 of Zapped 64, which was the very dry and warm month of September 1985. Graham, what exactly can we expect in this episode?
Blimey, we dive in with Skyfox, we've got five-a-side football, Kennedy Approach, Summer Games 2, Monster Trivia, we've got music, we've got Mig Alley Ace, we've got Hypersports, we've got everything here.
Awesome! So, without further ado, let's get on with the games. And our first game, as ever, is the cover game. Strange enough, this is a Sizzler and not one of the 2 gold medals that were issued this month. I can probably see why. This game is Skyfox, a game that is not actually to do with nighttime dog-like animals in the sky, but is an aerial combat simulator game, arcade, blastathon type 3D thing. The cover obviously allowed Mr. Frey to do his usual action-y type thing. So whereas we had Beachhead 2 and we had GIs, now we've got a man in a cockpit. That's pretty much the cover. Looking a bit action-y with some go faster lines and effects and stuff. Pretty good. Quite nice. Oliver Frey stuff's always good. It's not one of his standout ones again. It's a bit Boy's Own Adventure-y stuff style again, I think.
He's always a quality artist, so it's always good, but sometimes it's just not as good as other times. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's all art is subjective after all.
I think so, yeah. I mean, there's some tanks and stuff and, there's a tank in the background, isn't there? And some...
Yeah.
They've got a weird perspective sort of thing. You have to sort of twist your head a little bit to see it properly. But, it's Skyfox. It's sort of representative of this game, which came from Areola Soft. I'm not sure if this is their first title. I don't know. I've not noticed much stuff from Areola Soft before. They will release some interesting software, Areola Soft, that's for sure.
And who remembers when you loaded this game in, they told you all about it.
Did it?
Scarabaeus, yeah, that was one of theirs. Remember it saying, because when the game loaded, it had a loading screen, had a scrolling message on it, which seemed endless because it took ages to load. And at the bottom, it was just like a list of the games that were coming out. And I remember it, Scarabaeus, because it said it was the game within a game inside a computer within a computer. I remember that to this day. Weird. But that's because I was waiting a long time for it to load.
You saw it many times.
So long.
So Skyfox is a Sizzler. It's a decent enough game. It is a step forward from the other flight sims that we've had to endure in recent issues. This is a much more arcadey style of, it's a fight sim, shall we say, where you fly around and you're shooting at the planes, and sometimes you're close to the floor and blowing up tanks, and there's huge mothership type things that are also flying around. It's pretty decent. It's very fast. I have to say, I was really impressed with the speed that this thing goes at. It's got some nice touches. I like being able to pull up the sort of heads-up display and seeing where you are on the map and act accordingly. It's got a nice grid system. It's good. It gets a bit samey, which is the problem with a lot of these flight sims that from around this time, in that you do end up flying around quite a chunk looking for stuff, and then you'll see a few tanks on the floor and blow them up. Nice graphics, nice chunky big graphics, very fast 3D, some really good sprite scaling going on. I can see why they gave it a Sizzler, that's for sure. And it probably looks great in stills. In fact, I remember it looking really good in stills when there's a tank close up.
Absolutely, yes.
But in that respect, almost its speed is against it because you kind of don't get time to notice the visuals. Everything just moves really fast, which, you're in a plane, you're in a jet, so it does move fast. But it's one of those things. Great back to the back of the box shots, but they're gone so fast they're just off screen. It's like whoosh, there was a tank. Whoosh, there was a mothership. Whoosh, there was a jet. You're like, there's more blue sky. But no, it is good, and there's some it controls well. It's fast, it's zippy, it's nice, and I think it deserves its Sizzler status. I think it was, good choice for a cover game. I think. What do you think?
Yes, I did always like Skyfox because it was kind of arcade shootery, really, it's more of a shoot 'em up, really, than a simulation. Thank God, because let's face it, simulations haven't fared so well with our reviews. So this was actually quite light relief because I'd actually remembered Skyfox. I'd not remembered every detail, but all the things I remembered about it were still there. So it was fast, it was full of action. It had kind of a strategy element because you had to work your way around the map and find stuff and navigate around. So there was a bit to it. The main issue with it, I felt, was that the gameplay it got samey after a while. It was repetitive. And, if you put this side by side with something like Buck Rogers, which is the nearest thing I could think of that it was almost like, it's a long way from that. So it's good. You're right. The tanks kind of looked like tanks. The airplanes were so fast in the sky that blinking you missed them, but they were there. But it did feel like you were flying at speed. It felt like it had some pace. So it felt more of an arcade game, less simulatory, which is always a win for me, and I did enjoy revisiting it. Sounds were good. It had a nice sort of intro, and it had a nice feel. The whole package was quite a nice thing. It was an enjoyable game. I just think I don't know how long it'd last. Not how long it'd last. Physically, you're not going to sort of slowly fade and drop dead playing it. I mean, I don't know how long the longevity would be with it. I think over time you're going to get tired of, oh look, there's a tank. Oh look, there's another tank, and just kind of, because I was just going around in circles shooting tanks, and it didn't feel very hard. I don't know if that was just I was either really good at it, which is
I found that so.
But I found that it was just I didn't really have any trouble picking off the tanks. I'm not even sure they were shooting at me. I was just kind of flying around. I hit the ground at least twice and didn't die. So that I don't know. I assume I hit the ground.
You're equipped with proprietary bounce technology. So that this Skyfox, it has legs. This is Fox.
It felt like fun. For the first time, flying around shooting stuff felt like fun. My problem being that, yes, it did for a while, but when it kept going back to the map screen, I'm thinking, this is it. This is the time when something exciting is going to happen. I was back on what felt like the same thing, doing the same thing with tanks. It did change to sky once, so I was in the sky shooting stuff, and okay, it was clouds, and it was interesting, it was fast, and there was blurry images of something I was shooting at. It could have been a giant seagull, for all I know, which ironically enough appear in a different game later. But that said, it was okay. I wouldn't necessarily have pitched as a Sizzler. I wouldn't. But at the time, technically, maybe.
I'm just thinking, if you go back to this, like you said, you compare this to, I mean, this is like streaks ahead of something like Glider Pilot or that jump jet thing. So there's huge amounts of progress. And there is, if you get into it, there's different scenarios. There's a full-on onslaught. There's all those kind of different things, and I think it offers a varied package. But unfortunately, the variety all looks the same, which is a bit of a it starts to get a bit samey sort of thing. There's only a few things, which but it's still doing enough. I would say that. Did you back in the day? Did you play it on disc?
I did have it on disc. Yes.
Yeah. See, I had it. I had the tape. I never had a disc drive.
Actually, I had it on both.
I had it on tape, and I can certainly remember sort of thing. It was painful on tape.
Yeah.
Because each of the scenarios would have to load separately from tape, and it wasn't an enjoyable experience. So I don't have much experience of this back when it came out, because enjoyable to sit around and loading from disc, loading quickly as we can do it now, sort of thing. It's much more immediate and almost, like you say, very arcadey.
Yeah,
and that was a much more enjoyable experience. So I was quite pleased that I actually got finally round to playing this properly and probably the way it was intended a bit more.
Yeah,
and I feel that in that respect, I'm more impressed than maybe I would have been if I'd have played it and just been quite liking it at the time. I think in comparison to what we've had to put up with, this is way ahead of them. It's just, like I said, it's very fast, and that's almost to its detriment, because you just don't get to take in those big, chunky, nice sprite scaling stuff.
Yeah.
And it is quite, like you, I found it quite easy.
I think it's just, at least I could take off and fly around and do stuff. You know, I can think of at least 3 of the last simulators where I'm not even sure I really managed to do much of anything. So, you know, and all I was doing was really comparing how much green was on the screen to how much blue, and whether if there was too much green, I tended to explode because I'd obviously hit the ground. With this, it felt like I was at least flying around a landscape of sorts. So I enjoyed it. I think if you're going to do flight type games, do them like that. Simple as really in my rule, you know. I know that later on, you know, they do go. There are reasons you might want to do simulators, but in 64K, don't take on the complexity of an Apache gunship and expect it to really work in 64K. But you know, this is you don't really know what kind of aeroplane it is, do you? It's just a sort of jet fighter-y, space fighter, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's a Skyfox.
The Skyfox.
Skyfox, yeah. So it's like Firefox, but in the sky. So anyway, I liked it, and it was as good as I remembered it actually, which is quite nice quite nice when that happens, because we've played many games during the makings of these podcasts, and sometimes they're not as I remember them. Sometimes they're not as anyone remembers them.
No.
So this was good. A good start, I think. Good start, this one.
Yeah, a good start. Good choice for cover. Works well, fits well, and probably, you know, like I said, more actiony than the 2 gold medals that we will cover in a bit. So yeah, Skyfox, we like that. It was good fun. Good fun. Cool. Next up is a very different game. We're back to side-on 2D platforming land. With a recognisable main character. At least this main character is recognisable.
Yes.
And we are playing Rupert and the Toymaker's Party.
Yes.
What did you make of this?
So, I'm going to say this first off. I never liked Rupert the Bear. I don't. I don't. If it was Paddington, okay, I can deal with that. But I never got into Rupert the Bear. So this holds no interest for me whatsoever. And I didn't really even like Winnie the Pooh. When it comes to bears, I'm pretty much a Yogi Bear. I could sort of tolerate. Anyway, suffice to say, Rupert the Bear never touched my heart.
Hierarchy of bears. Hierarchy of cartoon
exactly.
bears.
Well, Rupert the Bear never touched.
I like Yogi, but get out of here, Rupert.
I was going to say Rupert the Bear never touched me, but it sounds positively awful in this climate. But I was never into it, so...
No.
So when I saw the game that was Rupert the Bear, it didn't make me go, oh, it's Rupert. I was like, oh, Rupert, you know, I know the iconography, checkered trousers, can walk, but if it had been, you know, any other bear, might have held more interest for me. The game itself, well, what can I say? Side on, up and downy platforms, scrolly, climbing and picking up things and doing stuff. And to be fair, it was one of those games where I have to say the graphics were okay, actually, considering it weren't bad. It looked like Rupert the Bear, and the main sprite was pretty good, but it had kind of just weird. It just felt a little bit after they'd cut the character graphic. Everything else seemed a bit of a second thought, and the gameplay wasn't there. I imagine you'd have to be really into the Rupert the Bear to enjoy this, because it's just what Rupert the Bear effectively lost, you know, and looking for stuff. Again, we've said this about these types of games many times, you know, well, you've got to make them more compelling than this. You can't just put a character in a situation and go, there you go, look at the fun there, because it doesn't work. You know, there's got to be challenge, there's got to be danger, or there's got to be something. But how far can you put a character like Rupert the Bear in danger if he's not going to run away from flame turrets or something like that, because it's just not part of that world, is he? So it's got to be all kind of nice things. So, you know, the most dangerous thing in that game was probably a flower, or, you know, a harsh plant or something. So for me, it's a decent main sprite, boring gameplay, and how far can you really push it? It's a game for kids, and I found it a bit faffy to control. So, but that could have just been the way I had it on an emulator and the way I was playing it. It doesn't mean that it's like that. But it was twee. The music was really twee as well. It had kind of child-friendly twee music, and as much as, you know, there's a place for that in these kind of games. It's only that kind of music. It really, after a while, it can really annoy you. So
that's my first comment in my notes is now. That's some twee music.
It is twee. It's so twee.
Incredibly twee. I'll tell you what, I did notice you didn't mention this sort of thing, which I was found interesting. This was a Martin Walker game.
Oh, okay.
It said it right at the start on the thing. It's a Martin, which I was not. You know, obviously he goes on to do Diaries in Zapped and
Hunter's
stuff like
Moon,
that.
I think. Didn't he do Hunter's Moon?
Moon, yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, you know, he must have already liked Rupert the Bear. He must have touched him. Thankfully, he didn't touch me.
Well, I'm thinking, you know, it says it's... No, it says yellow trousers.
Ew.
Yeah, so it's a Martin Walker game, which I was surprised at. Obviously, you know, it's a licensed title because it says copyright Daily Express newspaper in the credits sort of thing as they scroll up. It's a nice title screen. looks the part. The visuals are very pretty, given what they are. The main Rupert sprite is lovely. The little toy soldiers walking about are nice enough. They're pleasantly animated. Everything's pleasantly animated. The thing what I put down his sort of thing is it suffers from impossible mission syndrome, and they were so proud of the main sprite and how well it was animated, they forgot to add in any kind of sensitivity or balance to the controls, which is what we've said before. I mean, I'm not sure if we've actually covered Impossible Mission this or whether it'll come up in episode 0 when we finally get around to release. And so you press that jump and they're like, oh, look at him jump. Like, I want some control. And like climbing stairs was a nightmare.
It was. And now I want the Mission Impossible game, but with Rupert the Bear in it. Because that would be cool.
What scream would Rupert make?
That's what I mean. That's terrifying. The fact that if they kept it exactly as is, but just changed the main sprites, when Rupert fell down the hole and that blood-curdling scream, you'd think twice about doing that.
Another visitor. You're a bear.
Yeah, why are you here?
Get out, bear.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
I mean, it is what it is. It's just like you said. It's just another one of them. It's all very twee and Rupert-like, but the controls just put you off, and you just end up bouncing around. And again, it's that thing on a spring. You hit something and bounce back.
Yep.
And, oh god, looks the part. And I imagine if you saw screenshots of this, you'd be like, oh, it looks lovely. But playing it was just a pain.
Yes.
I couldn't, and I found it put me off. A few screens in, I thought, oh, maybe I push up to climb the stairs, but no, you have to jump up from step to step, and every time Rupert falls is that really nice animation. There are obviously Martin Walker's a very talented programmer and an animator and a graphics artist. Don't get me wrong, all that is great, but this game is a by the numbers flick screen side to side scroller. It's one of them. It's another one of them.
It's just another one. Yeah.
How many times? We just need to get that on a sample. It's another one of them. Anyway, next game. Yes,
it's just, it's true. It is just, it's another one of those. And it's neither, it's not offensive, is it? It's impossible unless, but we've seen this game a million times before and done better.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminded me as well, structurally sort of thing, and the way it looked. I mean, this is, it's Roland's Rat Race.
Yes.
3 levels, moving up and down, ladders, licensed character. It's Roland's Rat Race again.
If it had people shooting at him, it'd be Rolling Thunder as well, which would be cool with Rupert the Bear in. He could be they should have just diversified the type of game.
Thunder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rolling Rupert.
Rolling Rupert, Rupert Thunder. Rupert Thunder sounds like a name for an alternative industry that he might be part of. And
those toy soldiers would be those fake KKK people in Rolling Thunder.
God, that's extreme, wouldn't it? That'd be Rupert and the Toymakers Party Extreme Edition. But I think, like you say, twee sums this game up perfectly, actually. It's just twee. Twee.
I think Zapped 71% was a bit generous.
Just a bit. And it's, that's you got the twee factor in there. Maybe the thing is, if they all were brought up on Rupert the Bear, then no wonder it got 71%. They were like, oh, it's Rupert. Remember Rupert? Good old checkered trousered Rupert. Yeah. It's like, no. I don't remember him, actually. I don't.
Yeah, it must be hard to kick something like Rupert in the face.
I don't know what era was Rupert invented. Where did it come from? Is Rupert the Bear?
Idea.
Is it a 50s thing? Is it pre-war, post-war? Where did it come from? Who the hell is this bear?
I don't know. I just don't know.
And why didn't that bear out of Rainbow ever get a game?
What, Bungle?
Bungle's Big Adventure, the game that never was. There's
Bungle
mileage in that.
Bungle bears all.
Yeah, he takes his pyjamas off. That's with his hairy leather palms. It's gross.
To be fair, sort of thing, you could do quite an interesting sort of, puzzle game sort of thing using the various skills of the Rainbow Crew.
You could, yes. They could escape. Rod, Jane and Freddie come to the rescue.
Yeah, Rod, Jane and Freddie minigame in the middle, which is something like a bit of a dance-off thing.
Yes. How did this not get made?
Way off topic here.
You're not kidding. Okay, anyway, so Rupert and the Toymakers Party doesn't deserve 71%. I don't think at all.
It does not, no. We did not enjoy that sort of thing. After the highs of Skyfox, we've got the
crash down to earth.
I mean, it's just dull. It's just dull twee nonsense.
Yes, well said, well put.
But was it better than our next game? This is debatable because our next game, we spoke about this in our last issue regarding the advert. And so our next game for this part, the last game for this part is Five-a-Side Football. Now, my first note on this one was, upon loading, was that Pele looked really shocked in that that he was playing football in the loading screen. And he was being observed.
I've screen grabbed it, so you'll see it on the website.
He was being observed by the greyest crowd in the world. It's really scary.
It was Pele. Goodness me.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be Pele, yeah. But he looks terrified of that football. Absolutely terrified.
It's a representation of Pele. I think it's there's artistic license in that. But yes, he didn't look pleased. He looks kind of grumpy.
He looks terrified to me, and I think I've seen the original picture that's based on. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's Pele looking terrified in front of a wall of grey faces.
Is Pele famous for five-a-side soccer? Just out of curiosity.
No, not that I'm aware of.
No, okay. He's more of a traditional 11, number-a-side.
Yeah, 11. Standard 11. This is a classic example sort of thing we'll see maybe in some later adverts sort of thing of artists of the time taking recognisable images and co-opting them for use in games and adverts. And we do see a lot of adverts through the years, through this period, where it's clearly a certain person just drawn slightly differently. And we will see that. And this is another example of that.
It is, but just as a note, as an aside, let's just remember that drawing these images on a Commodore 64 was no easy task. So... Because you were, you were pixel painting at best, probably with koala paint, which I think was the only package at least for some time, to draw anything with, and you needed the patience of a saint. However, that said, I imagine with graph paper and some time and skill, you could draw anything you wanted. So I'm guessing that if you get a picture of Pele and trace over it with graph paper, that's exactly what he looks like.
He does. Terrified. You can probably tell, though, sort of thing, by the amount of time we're talking about the loading screen.
Yeah.
We're not in a rush to get to the actual game.
It was cheap and nasty. Come on, it was. It was nasty.
It was £6.
Yeah, but I don't mean cheap and nasty in price. I mean cheap and nasty every other way.
No, but it was a Mastertronic. It was a Mastertronic game, I think, wasn't it? It said Mastertronic at the start.
Yeah, that's what threw me a bit.
I was expecting this to be $1.99, $2.99. But this is $5.95. Like, what's this all about? And it just made me realise how good international soccer was.
Yes. I say my notes did exactly the same thing.
I put it's a passable, and I wanted that pun. A passable football game with the scariest crowd ever set to a game. That's crowd were terrifying. Whenever a goal
just round heads, just lots of round heads.
And they sort of go. Bleh. I was like,
yes.
I don't like this. There was really odd speech.
The speech was weird.
When the ball went in.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I put, notice, it's just a bit rough and ready. And I put for £6, I'd still prefer international soccer.
Yes, I put, my notes were somewhat scrappy, has been bettered by other games of this type. The speech was a kind of crazy touch, but the whole thing is just cheap and nasty.
Yeah. It's like... I do like the fact you can kick the players over.
Yes.
And you're right next to them and you can kick them. That's quite a nice touch, and they sit down for a while. But I'm not going to use the word artificial intelligence because it's just artificial. There's no intelligence on display.
No.
The other players that you're not controlling run around randomly. I get it, sort of thing. The 64K, what are you going to do? But at least international soccer felt like they were doing something to help. This just felt like random sprites moving about every now and again might get in the way of a ball. It's not great. It's not.
They had one, for me, they had when I was playing the computer, it had one tactic, which was just run across the middle of the field with the ball. And if you tackled that person, they immediately got the ball back, and there was you couldn't get it off them. And when it got to the goalie, my goalie was super fast, so it became really hard to save anything. Because I breathed on the controller, and he was like shooting them and diving about. So it just felt like I've got players that were running. It was weird. I couldn't understand the physics. I was running faster than the person who had the ball, and I couldn't catch him. I was like, I don't get it. And then when I did catch him, I couldn't get the ball off him. So the guy just ran down the middle of the field, in the middle, and then just booted it straight in. And I was like, okay, so this is going to happen a lot. And I was like, I'll just put international soccer on if I'm going to play this. It's just basically the same game, but it's like someone made a car boot sale version, and there it is. It's like, it's just kind of take all the whiz and razzmatazz off international soccer, such as it's got, but take all that away, and you end up with this kind of car boot, dodgy days version. And the guy who made it's got his name all over it, right? It's on the background, it's on the game when you start it, it's on all of the, what do you call them, the advertising panels that go around the edge of the pitch, so to speak. He's
was
weird.
Proud of his town.
He's very proud of his town, and all the players kind of look the same, which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah,
just a scrappy five-a-side football game, which is just, there's two games out there that are way better. International soccer being one of them. Brave to take on Commodore, really, at their own game.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been okay in two-player. It could have been. I don't know. We only played it one player, so maybe if you get two people to, when you're not just charging down the middle and you're kicking each other over, and it's that's a bit of a laugh, I suppose, because it's just booting each other off the ball.
I want to see a real football match where they do that exact tactic all the time, where the famous football player gets the ball and just runs down the middle regardless, and is just straight to the goal, and the goalie just goes 20 times faster. Just I want to see it for real.
To be fair, maybe that's why Pele was so terrified.
Yes.
Because this is a game of football where as soon as you get the ball, someone just runs up and kicks you.
Yeah.
So he didn't want the ball. The ball's coming to him. He's like, I've got to get booted.
Are there any sides that play football like that? Is that no? Is there? Well, it's five-a-side, isn't it? So
I don't know. I'm not big up on the five-a-side leagues of the world.
You know, Scrapyard Johnson's United five-a-side team versus Billy Blockhead's Plumbers.
Trevor's Truckers.
Yeah, Trevor's Truckers versus Frederick's Fastenings.
Billy's Plumbers.
Okay, so five-a-side. I would rather play international soccer as my review of that.
I think that's my review as well. So we've got one good game out of the first three and two ne'er-do-wells.
What did Zapped give five-a-side, by the way? How did they rate it?
They gave it a 60. I think they're high on summer juice at this point in time.
They must have been.
Because they're being very generous, or we're being overly harsh. Adam.
I don't know about that.
I think we can spot the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, yes, we can.
And this was definitely chaffy.
Yes, chaffy. Yeah, scrappy. Scrappy do.
Scrappy. Okay, so on that note, that rounds up the first three games. Skyfox, Rupert and the Toymakers Party, and Five-a-Side Football. We'll be back in a brief moment where we will be looking at what was going on in the UK in September 1985. Okay, welcome back. So what was going on in September 1985? Well, what was going on was a boatload of riots across the UK. People were clearly not happy. And so, yeah, there was rioting. There were other things going on. 4th of September, first photographs and films of the Titanic, of the RMS Titanic's wreckage are taken 73 years after it sank.
That's pretty incredible, really, because that was... They didn't really know where it was. Obviously, they knew whereabouts roughly it sank, but obviously it's not like it's you can just go to the exact spot in the ocean and go, well, look, down there it is, because it was obviously miles down. So it is amazing. And those photographs are astonishing. You can see, famously, you can see actual video footage of it if you watch the movie Titanic, of course. And I mean the bits that are from the actual Titanic, not the make-believe
that famous documentary,
that documentary
with Leonardo DiCaprio.
However, the footage of the wreckage at the beginning of the film is actual footage of the Titanic. That is the real Titanic there.
Yes, it is.
Sound crazy what happened there.
Yes, that's quite impressive. But then 9th, 10th and 11th September, there was first lot of rioting. So rioting broke out in Birmingham, in the Handsworth area of Birmingham, due to racial tension. They escalated on the 10th with arson and looting, resulting in thousands of pounds worth of damage. People died. This ended on the 11th September with the final casualty toll standing at 35 injuries and 2 deaths. But a further 2 people were unaccounted for, which is strange thing.
Weird. Where did they go?
I don't know. No idea.
Maybe they just decided not to be involved.
Maybe they just were moving at that time.
Yeah. Awful.
They were just getting out. It's not great, but some things seem to never change.
Troubled month.
28th September, there was a riot in Brixton, obviously in London, that erupted after an accidental shooting of a woman by police. One person died, and 50 more were injured, and more than 200 arrested. So this is a fractious month, but
on the light side of the news.
But we're not going to talk about that because what we're going to talk about is this. On September 13th, Super Mario Brothers, the game first appeared. Obviously created by Shigeru Miyamoto at Nintendo. So that's quite a big momentous occasion, really, in video game land, was the arrival. I mean, obviously, yes, people out there will go, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Mills, but you'll find that Jumpman was the first appearance of Mario. And obviously there was Mario Brothers. I don't care, whatever, tough. Yes, he was in Mario Brothers. Yes, he was in Donkey Kong. But this is Super Mario Brothers, a seminal classic to this day, really. It's Super Mario Brothers, isn't it?
It's important because it's a global icon. This is the same as people have the same affinity for Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny and other characters of that type. This Super Mario and the Mario Brothers and the whole family of characters that came with it are no different to that. And in fact, of course, most recently, albeit that it's been delayed, have a entire theme park dedicated to Super Mario. This is an important thing.
Yeah, it is sort of thing. But what I actually wanted to talk about was, yes, this was a big event when we look back now, but living on a council estate in a small town in the UK sort of thing, my engagement with Mario at this point in time was pretty minimal. Did you really know? I mean, I knew Donkey Kong. I kind of knew the Mario Brothers game from the arcades, but I had no real link or sort of knowledge of Super Mario and Mario Brothers and Mario as it's called, and Luigi. It is a thing that has become a little bit Americanized, I think.
It took off in America, big style. America was the place they wanted to crack, wasn't it?
And a bit of revisionist, maybe history going on with a lot, I don't know, sort of thing. I didn't know a lot of people with NESs or around this period of time. It was very much computer based around my peer group, my friends. I think I knew one person with a Master System, but that was a few years later. I certainly didn't know anyone with a NES.
At that point in time, believe it or not, and if the documentary Console Wars is anything to go by, at that particular time, Nintendo owned about 95% of the gaming industry in the US and in Japan. Mario was their flagship character.
Well, I mean, obviously the SNES. Well, I think the SNES was released. Was it around about September? Must have been. It was towards the end of '85 that the SNES came out. It was somewhere in '85 that the SNES came out, and obviously rebooted the gaming industry within the US. Obviously after the crash in '83, and so. Don't get me wrong, I understand all that, I get all that sort of thing, but from a UK perspective, from our perspective, I don't know. I mean, put it this way, sort of thing. I'm looking through the magazines at this time, and I'm not seeing much about Mario.
No, I don't think it was really a big deal and I don't think it's a big deal in Europe.
No, I don't think it was as well. Which I think that's what I'm saying about this notion that we all remember Super Mario Bros. Like, no, I don't. Well, not really.
Remember that Nintendo at this time only had Nintendo Japan and Nintendo in America. That was it. They didn't have a European wing. They didn't have any of it. So I imagine that. Europe was. I wonder if Europe is a difficult nut to crack in terms of sales because localization issues alone for games because you've got to release them in all the different languages and there's a whole series of issues you don't face if you just have one big landmass like the US and Japan.
And also don't forget we ran on a completely different television system.
We did.
So we ran PAL, they ran NTSC. Yeah, we were at 50 hertz, they were at 60 hertz. So I think that was, I'm not sure when the NES actually came out in the UK. Was it about 87, 88?
Do you know? I don't know, actually. That'd be worth looking up. I don't know.
So this is what I'm saying. It's like, Mario is a big deal. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not. So Super Mario Brothers is a big event in gaming history. It introduced a lot. Its design ethos is unparalleled. It's still a masterclass in how to teach someone how to play a game without loads of text and everything like that. That's still a beautiful thing. But it is curious. Sort of thing that I would say that my first encounter with Super Mario Brothers was not Super Mario Brothers. It would be the Great Guyana Sisters
on the C64. Yeah, actually. Yeah. Well, there was a Mario Brothers game based off the arcade on the C64, which came before that.
There was Mario Brothers, wasn't it? Single screen jumping thingy. Yeah, but with actual, the side-scrolling, running along platforming that we now associate Mario with, not the single-screen, headbutting turtles thing. It was Guyana Sisters. Guyana Sisters, which was obviously, as we all know, was a Mario Brothers. Let's be kind and say homage.
Yeah, well, they got done for it, so it was more than a homage. It was a. More than that, they got completely hammered for it. By the way, the NES came out in the EU on October the 18th, 1985. So 1 month later.
Really?
Yep.
I thought it was later than that.
Nope. October 18th, 1985.
Colour me corrected.
I didn't realise that. But then again, like you say, just because it was released in the EU, Europe, that doesn't mean that it got any penetration in the UK. UK was still, at this point, Sinclair Spectrums and home computers and and I don't think consoles, because I think the bad taste of the Atari console was still in people's mouths here. And console got a bad name. Consoles and cartridges got a very bad name over here, and people were just liking the idea of tapes and things like that. And
I also think we like the idea of being able to create stuff.
Absolutely.
Which you couldn't do on consoles. People like to be able to tinker and type your own, as much as we knock those type your own listings from Commodore CMVG and stuff. People did enjoy them, otherwise they wouldn't have ran with them every month.
Well, yeah, and some game makers, that's how they started, regardless of how good they got later. That might have been their very first foray into making a game of sorts from Hunchy, because someone made Hunchy, and then after that, who knows what they went on to make.
Absolutely.
Halo. That's an autobiography right there, from Halo to from Hunchy to Halo.
Hunchy to Halo. Someone just likes games beginning with H. He also did Horace Goes Skiing.
And all the Hunchback games is responsible for Hunchy, Hunchback at the Olympics.
But he had nothing to do with Quasimodo.
No. That's like the Never Say Never Again of the Quasimodo game world.
What's a one game too many?
But Mario, very, as you rightly say, it was weird. I agree with you. I don't think I really had any idea about Mario. Not till probably quite quite heavily into the Super Nintendo, and maybe not even then. I really only became kind of aware of it because of all of the noise around Sonic the Hedgehog, and that kind of led me to those kind of games. And then obviously Mario games, I think there'd been maybe 3 or 4 out by then on the Super Nintendo, but I never even played them then. But I never owned a console. I never owned any of those consoles at all, not even a Mega Drive, or I didn't have any of them. So at least not personally.
I think my first experience of sort of consoles, like I said, I think I knew someone with a Master System, but then was seeing them in like the windows of, the long gone Dixons, and I think they used to have a display on there running the Mega Drive and the CD32 when that was coming through in early 90s. I remember seeing those running in the window. But consoles were just until the PlayStation, consoles were just not something I was particularly interested in.
No, I mean, I had a friend who had a Mega Drive. So I vicariously enjoyed that. I had friends who had Super Nintendos, but the actual Nintendo console, that's a retro curiosity for me. It's a bit weird. Yeah, the NES, or was it where was it called, Famicom, or is that the other one? I lose track of them all.
The Famicom is the NES. The Famicom is the family computer, which is the Japanese name for it, and that was released in 83. Right?
I had that robot thing with it. Was that I lose track of which is... Was
it Robbie? I don't know.
Robbie the robot? Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'd never played any of them, and I don't think Mario, if I was really honest, I didn't really get into any Mario games till probably maybe even later down the line as far as the Wii. What was the N60? Is the N64?
Yeah, because I remember the N64 one was Super Mario 64.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. When it became more than... I never liked the side-scrolling variants. They were too hard. Still are.
Yeah, you brought the N64 home. You borrowed one from work, and you had
borrowed one from Blockbuster. That's right.
Yeah, you had that in GoldenEye. I remember we played that one night around at your house.
We did. Yeah, we did.
And so we were playing that. So that was, and I think we both were like Mario 64. We're like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
which is so weird.
I remember thinking the 3D world was amazing. I remember thinking, wow, it's just I just went by running around it a lot. But up to that point, if you said to me how many Mario games have you played, I could tell you probably none, maybe one. But I don't remember ever playing any of them even on a SNES, really, because the person who I knew who had a SNES was never into them either. He was more into the sort of, I don't know what you'd call them, really. You wouldn't say adult games, but not those games, the Star Wars games and stuff like that. And Anyway,
anyway, that's Mario. That's our views on Mario in the 80s. We don't have any.
One side of the world is rioting. Meanwhile, Mario, he could have cured all that. He could have just dropped a few Marios in there to come running in.
Yeah. But yeah, I always think it's interesting sort of thing to give a different viewpoint sort of thing on what is the sort of recognised history of gaming. That everybody was loving Mario all around the world. It's like, nah, the word.
Yeah, it's revisionist.
We didn't really know much about them because we were too happy playing five-a-side soccer. How lucky we were.
Absolutely, but I would definitely recommend watching the Console Wars documentary that's out there in the world, partly because the first half an hour is about the history of if you're into it, the history of Nintendo and how they came to be that dominant player in the US industry at the time. Absolutely, I don't think it even mentions Europe, not till way later on during Sega and stuff, so I'm not plugging it any more than that, but if you're really into that kind of thing, that's probably something you'd like to watch. That's all I'm saying.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Console Wars.
The team behind Console Wars would like us to say.
If only we had sponsors. Right, okay. So there you go. That's what was going on in the world. So, riots and Mario. Strange month. We'll be back in a moment with our next set of games. So stay around.
Stay forever.
And we are back after our thoughts on Mario. Let's move to 3 more games that came out in this month, September 85, on the Commodore 64. And the first is a really odd game. This is a strange old game. This is Kennedy Approach. So, Kennedy Approach, air traffic control simulator.
It is. Yep. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it is. Let's move on then. So, Kennedy Approach, what did you think? How did you enjoy your time, or did you not with this game?
There's some important things about Kennedy Approach. So firstly, it's a Microprose game. I don't know if it's their first game. I'm not sure that it was, but it's a Microprose game, which means it's a simulator, because they became really well known for the simulators. And in fact, I think they even advertise other Microprose games on the back of this one. By the way, there's a Microprose game later on, which we review, which is very different, to say the least. However, so it's an ATC air traffic control simulator, loads of speech in there. I
Really
had absolutely no idea what I was doing at all, but I didn't have any instructions to go by, which I imagine this probably came with a book of instructions. They often did. The Microprose simulations came with a really thick manual, if I remember rightly. It isn't my cup of tea at all, these kind of simulators, but in the same way that I never played Train Simulator or never played, I'm not into simulators, but this looked to me, and I'm no expert, like a particularly good simulation of air traffic control. I don't get how anyone would enjoy it, but I'm not into it. But someone who really likes air traffic management might very well really like it. I don't know. It's a really weird idea for a game. Well, it's not even a game, is it? What is it,
Well, there was that early iPhone game, wasn't there, where you had to guide the planes in, which this reminded me of a little bit. The controls, I think I did figure it out. The controls are actually pretty simple. So it's a single screen game.
Well, it's a radar.
Yeah. So you have a runway in the middle. The one I played Atlanta. So it's a radar screen sort of thing, and you'll see planes approaching from different directions and different angles. So they're approaching the runway, they're at 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet, whatever. You click on the plane, you move your joystick, you've got a little square that you move around the screen, you move it onto the plane, and then you click on it sort of thing. Once you've clicked on it, you can then make it change direction. You've got an 8-way arrow, which you move left or right to change its direction. And if you move up and down, you can alter it. You give a command basically to alter its altitude. So what you want to be doing is aiming them towards the runway and lowering their altitude slowly so that they approach straight onto the runway and land. And like you said, you are looking at these on a radar. So the distances these things are traveling is great, but it's a very small screen and you expect them to move quicker. But so you tell it, just turn left. And you expect it to turn left like that. Except it doesn't, because it's a plane, firing at several hundred miles an hour in the sky. And so it takes a little time to turn left, and you have to allow for that. And when you realize as well that the lines below it are where it is actually above the ground, not where it is on the screen, that's just all starts to tie together. You figure that, and it all starts to pull in, and then a second plane comes on, and then a third plane, and then a fourth plane. And then the one thing this did to me sort of thing, it really stressed me out. It was really stressful, and told me to never take a job in air traffic control, ever.
No.
That's not the career for me. Basically, what happened in the time I played this, I managed to land one plane. I had another fly off the runway. I caused one to run out of fuel and was about to have a mid-air collision when I turned it off. It was too much. Just too stressful. It's got really good use of speech, really clever, and there's loads of speech. It loads, all the different things, and especially when you get that warning, we're running out of fuel, or whatever it says, and you're like, you're miles away from the air, I've sent you off on I don't know where. And then what I thought was this was, it reminded me that this really worked for me because it was like Theatre Europe in its sort of, step back and look at this from a distance, and the Spartan visuals just worked in its favor. It's a great game. I thought it was a great game, really well executed, just God damn it, too stressful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a very clever, feels like a simulation as well. So, like you say, the stress you're feeling is because you really feel like you've got these aeroplanes in the sky and you've got to manage them. Yeah, full of people, and the weight of that responsibility, and it's a simulation of that. So, therefore, you feel the stress of it. And the graphics are like a radar, so they don't need to be super fancy. They need to be, because even on obviously modern radars, very different. But as a representation of an air traffic control radar, and you can go online and see modern air traffic control simulators that you can actually play online now, so you can just Google that and play them. There's quite a few out there, and they don't deviate. This might be blockier, but it's the exact same principle that you've got planes in the sky at different altitudes. You've got to try and land them. You've got to, so that they don't hit each other, so that they can land and do all the things you would expect. And it is a stressful thing. Like I said, for me, it was a curiosity to play, and something I was thinking, I admire how clever the simulation is, because it really does feel kind of realistic. It's not something I would have gone, wow, you know what, I just feel like having a good dive into an air traffic control simulation state. But there are people out there that like that, and what it shows for me is that they weren't frightened of playing and creating some of the most diverse subjects into games. Where they've tried simulations of things, they've always done it badly. And like we've said many times, if you're going to do a simulation, make it feel good, make it real, make it, make it have consequences. And like you say, this is I imagine that must be a crazy stressful occupation. Yeah,
incredibly so. And this, like Theatre Europe, plays to the machine's strengths. Theatre Europe can replicate mass battles in the middle of Europe realistically. So it doesn't try to do that. It does it from a bird's eye view. Very similar to, what would go on to be like the classic level in Call of Duty 4, Death from Above, where you're in the AC-130 helicopter just raining down, and that sort of grainy film-like footage where, the other levels in Call of Duty 4 don't look realistic, but that has a certain level of photorealistic quality to it because it has a certain view and a viewpoint that we're used to.
Yeah.
This is, like you said, a radar representation of planes that don't look realistic. It's just a plane graphic. Your brain does the rest. Your brain fills in the fact that there's 200 people on that plane that you've got to get landed down safely. And that's a really powerful thing. I never played this because I think back in the day it was disc only.
It was disc only.
I don't think there was ever a tape version, so I never got to play this. But, this was a hidden pleasure to go and find this and play this. It's a weird thing sort of thing. I can't say that I enjoyed it because it was just so damn stressful. But I can really, really appreciate that this is a really good, like you said, something different and something out of the ordinary.
This is something you are not going to find in an arcade. You're not going to go down to your local arcades side by side with Defender and Golden Axe. There's an ATC simulation. Just not going to happen. So it shows that they were really thinking about what they could do on the platforms as opposed to just replicating what already exists. And I think that makes it very interesting.
Yeah, Kennedy approach. If you want something a little bit different to play, and this still plays pretty well, go and play it. It's good fun. Well, it's not fun at all. It's stressful as hell.
Interesting.
What am I saying? Don't play this. It's too stressful. It's too much. From one kind of simulation, guiding airplanes around, to one of, I like to believe, I'm going to just lay my cards on the table. I think one of the Commodore 64's crown jewels, really. We're going to talk about Summer Games 2, one of this issue's gold medals. Okay, so Summer Games 2, where do I start with this? This is amazing. This is, we've played some sports games so far. We've played various different sports sort of thing. This is just all the sports. This is just all kinds of different sports.
It is.
And every one of them could be almost a game in their own right. Every single one. There's so much nuance. There's so much exquisite controls, beautiful animation, great sounds, lovely music. This is obviously the sequel to Summer Games, which we have spoken about. And so this is the logical progression from that. This is taking what was great about Summer Games. It's not quite the jump from Pit Stop to Pit Stop 2, which Epix did, because Pit Stop was awful and Pit Stop 2 was amazing. But it's a similar kind of step up. It's that taking what the good elements of Summer Games was and then moving it forward in such a way that this is one of those games where, again, we said it last time about Way of the Exploding Fist, which, by the way, should have been a gold medal. We said it last week that this is, this machine is starting to go, look what we can do. Look what we can do. From an animation point of view, our good friend from Impossible Mission is brought to life again. So we've got our Epix runner, beautifully animated, and the whole package of this is incredible. There's so much to enjoy in every single event almost. I could wax superlative about this bloody game for the rest of this podcast. I'll hand over to you because I'm just going to run out of superlatives in a minute.
What is there not to like about this game? The animation's really good. It's got a really great intro sequence. It's got multiple dynamics of play, so you can play for the whole thing. You can pick a level. You can play it multiplayer. You can choose certain events and just play them. It's got a really, really amazing variety of sports. So from fencing, javelin, rowing, cycling, horse riding, for goodness sake. It's got really great animations in all of them. All of them really slick. All of them play really well. It's just great fun. And even one player, it was fun. There's nothing that isn't slick about it. It's finished to a really high level, and because of that, it's using a super fast loader. I mean, I don't think they mentioned it in the review, but it loaded super fast. It was the Epix fast loader, so it was really fast. So it was almost instant. So these games were just, so much was packed in, and they were so much fun. I mean, some of them aren't as good as the others. There are some that stand out. So the javelin was a great laugh. Those kind of events, less so the horse jumping, which after a while of the horse kind of just collapsing into a heap becomes a bit more annoying. But you can pick and choose what events you want to go at, and you can get really good at certain sports in this, which is something. So the dynamics of this game were massive, and it was the beginning of the games series, really, where it really became the powerful sports series. So obviously Summer Games was what it was, and it was a little bit of a test bed. Summer Games 2, and then it took off, and they never really looked back after it, did they?
No, they didn't. And just to sort of say, you were saying about the multitude of options of playstyles, you could include the Summer Games 1 events into this.
I didn't notice that.
This is an option on there, and if you put it there and then you say choose a thing, you've got all the Summer Games events as well. I mean, that's incredible. This is like, that previous game you bought? Yeah, just bring it in. we'll just play that as well. So you can have 16 events.
Oh, that is really cool.
And play them all through with... It's an astonishing package.
And they're hard. It's not like these, it's not like they just run and jump and, hey, presto, here you go. Some of these actually require some serious skill. Rowing, kayaking is tough. It's really tough.
Well, I wrote that sort of thing. I wrote great controls that bypass the usual waggle. And makes each event a test of skill. There's so much. There's just so much in this. Yeah, you're right. I think the equestrian is probably the weak link. It's it's still great. It reminded me the equestrian reminded me of Kickstart, sorry.
Yeah. I agree.
Similar, you've got to have that speed ready for the jumps and what have you.
I just kept taking off on the horse and it just kept jumping about 3 times and then collapsing in a heap.
I managed it. So, in fact, what I actually did was, because I'm that much of a nerd, I wrote down my playthrough it all once, and these were my results.
Oh, God, anorak.
So I got 1665 on the triple jump, 29.9 in the rowing, 97.06 metres on the javelin. I got disqualified on the equestrian, 1 metre 90 on the high jump. I won the fencing, 50 seconds on the cycling, 1 minute 23 on the kayaking, and I enjoyed every single one of them. I played the hell out of this back in the day, and that's even with the tape version, because each event felt great. And the good thing was as well, I am that sad sort of thing that I used to put in 8 names, 8 countries.
Yeah, I did that when I
played
played
it. And play on my own, because then I got real value for money out of each bloody event. And I got really good at them.
Yeah, it's good fun to do that. All the events are good. I mean, it's got that nice opening ceremony. It's got a nice closing ceremony as well.
The closing ceremony's ace.
It's just a complete package. It's a great game. And it's the first. I think it's probably the first of the great multi-event games. I guess you'd call them that, because each one's and they do variations of this as they actually get better as well. So some of the games is such a strong point to start them from. Wow. America
is riding high on the back of LA 84. There's a real sort of buzz around sort of track and field and all that sort of thing in America at this time, and you can see that that's on the back of this, because those closing ceremonies, the guy in the jetpack, the sky getting darker, the beautiful music, the flame going out, and then the fireworks.
Yeah.
Everything about this is wonderful. It's just such a brilliant example of what this machine can do in the right hands.
What an amazing game. It a well-deserved gold medal from them. And certainly the score is reflective of its importance as well, because like we said last time, every now and from here on in really, and it gets more common, a game comes up, maybe more than one, and they're just all of a sudden, you just start to see there's something really powerful about that game. Way the Exploding Fist had it last time, Summer Games has got it this time, where they're starting to really show that the Commodore 64 is very capable of doing more than just running around collecting stuff games, which which was the default game choice, I think. This is brilliant. This is a brilliant game.
Yeah, Epics they were on fire at this point. They were really good, and it was a sign of quality, this Epic stuff.
Yeah, from here on in, they'd had their hit and misses, but this game series, Summer Games, and as we'll go on later with World Games and California Games and Winter Games, they are astonishing. They just get better and better. Well, and not so much better. They're just, they're different events, and in some ways the graphics do get improved and stuff like that, but they never did anything that was what you'd call by the book. So, you get a sports game and you were going to expect there to be, like decathlon, 100-meter sprint, possibly hurdles, because it's a 100-meter sprint with a jump, easy peasy, really. They didn't shy away from anything. You tell me where they went into a meeting and said, we're going to do horse riding, cycling and kayaking. And people would have looked at them and gone, are you mad?
Yeah.
Are you actually bonkers? And they were gone, and they pulled it off, and with some real gusto. I don't think there's ever really another game of that type, multi-loader, that's as good, other than their own, other than other Epics games in that series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they managed to make high jump work, which never really worked on anything.
It certainly didn't work. And what was the other one that had high jump?
Was it track and field?
Track and field had it, yeah. Up, suddenly turned, flip, sort of, it was weird, wasn't it, the way it worked?
It was a strange, yeah.
And of course, having the old Mission Impossible guy in it didn't hurt things, did it? That was always a great bit of animation. So, why not reuse him? And of course, he can actually just jump as opposed to somersault, because of course, if it was Mission Impossible guy, he would run and do the long jump. That triple jump, he would just do some kind of forward flip and get disqualified every time, because that's all he could ever do, right?
And every time he got disqualified, he'd go, "Ah!" Summer Games 2.
Fantastico.
Deserved classic, deserved gold medal, and still brilliant fun. Go play it. Really do. It's ace.
Do it.
Now the next one. So our last game in this is an eclectic bunch of games we've got here.
Just a bit.
We've gone from air traffic control to celebration of athletics in the summer to monster trivia. Okay, so we've talked about the advert for this. We do talk about the advert for a lot of these, actually. They seem to sort of pop up. Graham, monster trivia. Go on.
So, Paul Norman game, thumbs up. Cosme, Paul Norman, has had its pedigree of the stuff, not all of it great, but okay. He has his own unique kind of flavour. This is just out and out weird. So it's essentially a trivia game, and you can play multiplayer, got really weird limitations on what you can call yourself. It's ever so weird. All of it's weird. So you end up, and for what I could gather, you answer questions of varying different point values, and there's a monster that's behind a giant door, and I'm guessing if you eventually don't answer enough questions correctly, the monster gets you. I didn't get that far into it, but the questions are really hard for a start. The categories and the questions are really tough, and you got to answer them by typing in, and you got to get it, correct. So there's no variations, and it does make that clear. If you're typing in stuff, make sure it's this, make sure it's that. So there are rules around that. And if you like trivia and quizzes, and people, because Trivial Pursuit is one of the biggest games on the planet, so people do like questions and answers. TV shows are made of games where people are asked questions and trivia games and quizzes and stuff. So people do like that kind of thing. It's just weird. I don't get why it's wrapped in kind of a weird monster thing, and it's just weird that it came from Paul Norman. The guy's got such a diverse range of games. It's weird that he went from Forbidden Forest to whatever it was, that other one we did, to this
helicopter
simulation, to suddenly a maze trivia game. So I've put that I don't find trivia games that much fun on my own. So you have to play it multiplayer because you can't play it one player. It's minimum of 2 players. You can choose boy, girl. You can put your name in, so you get inside the questions. You pick the characters. You get the idea, and you progress and answer the questions right or wrong. It's got some kind of graphics in it, a representation of a person, boy and girl. The girl's got proportions different to the guy, shall we say? So there were generous proportions in some areas. Weirdly, graphics are a bit rubbish, I thought, but it's a trivia game with other stuff around it. I don't know what more to say. If you either like being asked questions for points or you don't. I wasn't really into it, and I answered a few questions. Then they went so insanely hard. I was like, no kid's going to play this game, because how would they know that? No kid is going to know some of those science questions with like really difficult psychology questions and physics questions. I'm like, what? How is the kid going to know the formula for that? I don't know who it was aimed at, really. Adults, I think.
Well, I think so. I mean, my first comment, it's Paul Norman, and Paul Norman, another term for the books, like Martin Walker earlier. And then I actually thought, is Paul Norman the only person working at Cosme?
I think he might be.
Is Cosme like Paul? It's just his sort of business, his studio name. That's what it is. And then I've noted down, is this Forbidden Forest the quiz? Because it felt like Forbidden Forest with its big intro and everything. He does like his sort of dramatic intros, doesn't he? And then I put, for some reason, it's turned into Saw with that sort of, we're going to play a game. And I was like, this is really weird. And my notice on this sort of thing, it said this is hard to play now, as the questions can be, they're very of their time. I mean, we're talking trivia questions from 35 years ago that were, relevant to what was going on. And also as well, it's very quite American oriented, which made me think that some of these, it was very hard to answer any of the questions. I did get some of them, and I did actually play through an entire round with 2 people, so I did see the ending, that the monster came out and grabbed one of my players. The monster is disturbing.
Yes.
Did you not see it?
No, I didn't get that far into it, because I just not into quiz games generally.
Well, if you keep going, then eventually the monster comes out and grabs the loser. I figured that would happen.
Yeah.
But it's like this really Forbidden Forest style monstery type thing. But it's like really weirdly animated. It's like flickery. It's quite disturbing. And it just moves along, grabs the player, and disappears back into the door with it. Yeah, it's a trivia game, but like you said, I'm always of the opinion that these kind of trivia games should just give me multiple choice. Don't expect me to type in hydrochloric acid or whatever the answer is. Or things like that. And at one point, it said, who is the physicist who hung around with this? So someone or other. And it said to me, it says, make sure you type in full names and all this sort of thing and blah, blah, blah. And I went, all right, Albert Einstein. Sorry, that's wrong. The answer is Einstein. So I got slowly annoyed. There's also questions about who owned Jesse's ranch in this sitcom. I'm like, how the hell would I know? So I can't recommend this because it's so of its time and it's so American oriented. You'd have to have an encyclopedic knowledge of American trivia pre-1985.
Yeah.
And in that respect, and the fact you have to type everything in.
No, not for me. It wasn't for me.
You can't recommend this to anyone right now, sort of thing. As an oddity, as a curiosity, as a weird thing, it definitely is that.
Yeah.
But, it is monster trivia. The advert made it look a bit more light-hearted, but this is actually, a bit of forest style.
It felt very deadly serious. It was, and I say that it was quite a big load. There's clearly a lot of info in that because there's all that question data and everything. So it was a chunky old load. It took a while. So when it finally got to it, you realise that you're going to be. The questions, there's plenty of them in there to go at, but are you going to sit around with a computer and 8 of your best friends and play a trivia game where you have to scramble around the keyboard and spell everything perfectly correctly, or you're dead?
Well, this could have replaced your, you're inviting friends around for a game of Mule or Jack Charlton's Match Fishing.
Yeah, so if you're going to, which do you want to do? Do you want to trade intergalactically? Do you want to fish by staring at a screen and pressing a button if there's a fish? Or do you want to answer questions on pain of death? So, it depends what kind of friends you've got.
Yeah, or do you want to play Summer Games too?
Or do that, which, let's face it, you're going to do that. I don't know about you, but this completely skipped me, this game. At the time, I don't remember ever seeing anything to do with it at all.
No, so I have no reference to this whatsoever.
Yeah,
this bypassed me.
Absolutely, same. So, and I don't think even if I'd have bought that, I would have been angry at myself. So I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, I would have been as well. So yeah, we can't recommend it. If you just want to look at something that's weird, it is weird, but it's not something you want to go play.
And if you want to play a Trivial Pursuit type game, just get Trivial Pursuit because you're probably going to find it more fun than this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The clue's in the name. All right, so that's our games for this section. We will be back after this brief interlude where we will be looking at music that was going on in September 1985. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Music, September 1985. Let's do this. Let's see what was going on. Let's look at our number one singles. So, what was number one in the UK pop charts in September 1985? Well, the big one for 4 weeks was "Dancing in the Street." David Bowie, Mick Jagger.
That was a charity single from they recorded the video, didn't they? Kind of one take for Live Aid, I think it was essentially.
It was, yeah. I thought I did have it in my head that it was a charity single. I can't remember what it was for though. Was it on the back of Live Aid?
Yeah, it was. They actually think they recorded the video for it actually during Live Aid. I don't know when they did the music, but they recorded the video for it. They went off and did it, and then I think it was played after the fact. So hence the reason why it's kind of just a load of cars lined up in the background with their headlights on and them dancing
in the street.
Unusually dancing because they.
Yeah. Bowie's outfit is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very 80s, isn't it?
Just a sort of an overcoat with a sort of one-piece leopard print thing. Is it, if I remember rightly?
Yes, it's like if you ever watched the film The Lost Boys when he first goes into the comic book store. He has I don't even call it a cloak, for want of a better description. Anyway, he's got one of them on. So
yeah,
must
lots
have been
of high kicks and Mick Jagger doing that face.
Yeah, Mick Jagger's face. Yeah, it's just
he does that Mick Jagger face quite a lot in this.
He does. It's a good song, and their version of it is fun, and they're kind of not taking each other too seriously in it, which is kind of nice. And I have a special affinity for David Bowie anyway. I don't mind Mick Jagger. Right, I don't mind the Rolling Stones to some extent. What's keeping them alive now is a mystery to everyone in the world.
I don't know.
They've outlived David Bowie and. No, but you know what? It was a charity single. What can you say? And they had a lot of fun by the look of it doing it. I remember the video for two reasons. I remember the video with its music, and I remember that weird YouTube video where somebody removed all the sound, and it just has their feet
just
squeaking, just breathing and squeaking with their shoes on the floor.
Good.
So that's why I remember. But yeah. It's good.
It is good, yeah, but that was knocked off eventually by, ironically, Mid-Jaw with If I Was.
Oh, that song. Do you like Mid-Jaw? Do you like Ultravox?
So my knowledge of Mid-Jaw Ultravox is I like Dancing with Tears in My Eyes.
Just generally, or that's the song?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I do. It's what I do of an evening. You can usually just find me dancing with tears in my eyes.
Yeah. Very emotional guy.
And obviously Vienna. Good song, bit of a classic. That kind of period classic. If I Was is okay. It's all right. I don't hate it. For some reason, If I Was always it puts me in the mind of a slower status quo song for some strange reason.
That's because you're thinking of In the Army now. I don't know. I do the same thing. I don't know why I do that.
I think If I Was whatever it is. Yeah. But yeah, it's not. It's all right. I can't say I hate it. I can't say I love it. It's just there, isn't it? Just Mid-Jaw, isn't it? Yeah. I just find it ironic that he's knocking the the Live Aid single off number one.
Yeah, well, because he helped write it, didn't he?
Absolutely, he's part and parcel of the whole Live Aid thing.
I don't know why, right? This is a weird fact, not a fact, a weird thing, and I don't know if you suffer this, but for some reason I always associate Midjaw with the military. I don't know why. If I think Midjaw, I think people in the army, and I think that's why I think status quo in the army now, but I don't know why. I don't understand where the connections, somewhere in the dark past of me seeing the various formats of Midjaw, because he came, one point he was kind of the mystery guy with a tiny moustache, skulking around the streets of Vienna shouting. Next he was this friendly-faced guy who wrote Do They Know It's Christmas? Then he's If I Was a better man, would other men reach out and touch me, is it? Which is probably a bit odd. I don't think that's the real lyrics. I've got a feeling I've amalgamated several into one. But for some reason, if I think Midjaw, I just think not paramilitary, that's weird. I just think military. I don't know why. I wonder what it is about it.
I've got that same image. I do believe sort of thing in one of the Ultravox videos sort of thing they are maybe in a tank.
Could be that.
I've got that image in my head, but it might not be him. I don't know. It could be Dancing with Tears in My Eyes or something.
Did he write in the army now? Did he write that or something? Anyway,
I don't think it's got anything to do with status quo, but I think there's some kind of weird. But it's strange that we both have that link in our heads. But yeah,
maybe we were in the room at the same time when he might have been on TV just talking about the army for all I know, but.
Absolutely, trying to sort of conscript us.
No, he was a bit of a beloved figure, wasn't he, Midjaw? He's a very talented songwriter, it has to be said, in all fairness to him. However, he was never quite going to get the hits, was he? This was an interesting number one for him, because Ultravox never made it famously with Vienna, did they? So
they were kept off by what's-his-face? Joe
Is it Joe DeLucia or Joe DeLucci with
Something
What's the Matter You?
Yeah. What's the Matter You, wasn't it?
What's the Matter You? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, anyway, let's crack on. Albums. We talked about this last week. Now That's What I Call Music 5 was still at the number one for 2 weeks. Then I was amazed this was only 1 week. It was Like a Virgin. I don't know whether this was back in.
It was back in, yeah.
It must have been back in, but on the back of some single release,
Live
probably.
Back of Live Aid, where she did a live performance of Holiday.
I guess, but this is September, and Live Aid was 2 months prior.
Yeah, but, and she's also, there's been a series there's also been Material Girl had been released in that time. And so maybe
Who's That Girl? And Who's That Girl?
Yeah,
we talked about that, didn't we? Sort of thing. And,
so I wonder if it's just been a bit of a resurgence there.
But then that was knocked off by Kate Bush with Hounds of Love.
What an album that is!
Which was
wow,
number one for the last 2 weeks of the month. Yeah,
are you a big Kate Bush fan?
I'm a big Kate Bush singles fan. My brother had some of the albums. I seem to remember. I did find them. I think at the time, I don't think I was mature and intelligent enough to really understand what the hell I was listening to.
Yeah.
Kate Bush is to use the word eclectic, and she has a particular predilection for being quite experimental in and still being a bit poppy. And so sometimes that works, be really poppy. So you things like Babushka, Wuthering Heights, and those kind of thing. Cloud Chasing or whatever it was,
The Man with a Child in His Eyes,
Man with a Child in His Eyes, and all those kind of things. Brilliant songs. But then you get and even sort of some of the weirdy stuff, which are army moves, things like that. Other times, I was just left a bit cold by some of the more, weirder stuff.
They're almost concept albums in their own right, Kate Bush albums, really.
Absolutely, 100% love Kate Bush. I think for what she is, what she represents, what she did, in British music at the time, she did her own thing.
Still does.
Which is, absolutely still does, and has written some absolutely phenomenal tunes, and coming from like a really classical perspective as well, sort of thing, which is an unusual mix. But at times, yes, I've got to say, I can't say I'm a huge fan of everything she's ever done.
No, and I believe she still, to this day, writes, performs, and produces her own records completely herself. Obviously, she's I imagine she has teams, but she was a real musical auteur in that respect. So if you listen to a Kate Bush record, you're listening to something that she put together, she wrote, she made, she steered it, she did everything, and released it herself. So she released them on her own label. So she never really was part of a bigger label where they would have put pressure on to be more commercial. She didn't have any of that pressure, so she was able to remain Kate Bush. And it's the reason why Kate Bush sounds like that. Crazy, but good.
Yeah. So new releases, singles that came out. Was there anything of note?
Some good stuff in there.
I mean, Dancing in the Street was straight in at number one. We might expect that.
Of course.
I just put the note on this. Lavender went in at number 23.
With what?
Marillion. The only Marillion song anyone likes, I've written, which is probably going to anger the Marillion fans.
Well, because I don't even remember it. Does anyone? What does it sound like?
Lavender, blue, dilly dilly.
That is not by Marillion.
Yeah, isn't it?
No,
I'm sure it is.
Lavender's blue, dilly dilly. That is not.
I've copied that. You can see it's copied off the chart. I haven't written this. I've copied it out. That's Marillion.
I know, but I just don't think that's how it goes. I'm pretty sure that's like a Lavender's Blue Dilly
when
Dilly.
When you love me, dilly dilly, I will love you. That's Marillion. That's Lavender.
He uses the words dilly dilly in a pop song.
Yeah,
fair
of course
play.
they do. It's Marillion.
I just thought that Kaylee was the only song they ever released.
Oh, Kaylee's the other one, but no, Lavender as well. I don't remember Lavender. Anyway, it went in at number 23.
I am gonna YouTube the hell out of that because I have to wear that.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure dilly dilly that I'm right.
Even if you're wrong, you're going to be right because I'm going to put dilly dilly in that damn song if it's not because there's not enough dilly dilly in songs these days for me. But no, but I never liked Marillion. I know somebody who did, but there you go. I won't hold that against him.
St Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion. John Parr in at 82.
Oh, God, the hair's getting bigger and bouffantier and the voice is getting gravelier by the second day. Yeah,
absolutely. I love Man in Motion. It's got one of the best middle eights in Eddie Tune. I love that song. That was obviously from the film St Elmo's Fire, which was very, very iconic around that time. This was quite interesting. At number 96, Who Needs Love Like That by Erasure, which was their first single, their first release. So this was Erasure, which would obviously Erasure would go on to become like a pop powerhouse, really, wouldn't they? But their first single, because I saw this and I was like, oh, let's have a look. Turned out, it was their very first single release.
Wow.
I do not remember this. I do not know this song. This is not an Erasure song that I'm aware of. And similarly, first release by what would become another pop powerhouse was Take On Me by Aha in at number 55. Wow.
Well, that must have climbed in the UK chart because I remember that. Did that get re-released and get higher in the chart at some point?
I'm not sure if it re-released. I'm not sure if it did get to number 1 or not. It might have done.
I remember hearing it, so I remember seeing it on top of Pops. So
no, this is where it entered the charts.
All right,
so it entered the charts at 55. All I've done is I'm noting where it entered. I'm not saying where it got to. We'll probably have a look at that later.
In no small part, that particular song helped by its amazing video, which got really heavy airplay at the time across MTV, and then that was one of those really crazy at the time, amazing videos. The animation and the real-time singing in the cartoon, and it's just amazing stuff, really is. Even now it's good.
Yeah.
And a great song.
Really is.
A great song altogether, all said and done.
It is. That's one of those few pop song sort of thing that has really improved with age. Really, at the time it was taken as like a bit of a teeny bopper type thing, but it's not. It's just a great pop song. As evidenced by the fact many different covers of it in many different styles.
There is.
There's that really good ska version.
Yeah, and Weezer did a good version of it.
Yeah, it's a really classic tune.
It is.
Albums-wise, not a lot that stuck out for new releases, and I didn't really note down much else. The only new releases really that came in were The Head on the Door from The Cure. Mm-hmm. That was in at number 7, and obviously we had the number 1 albums, and there was World Service by Spear of Destiny.
Post-punk, is that classed as post-punk?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Spear of Destiny were one of those sort of in the middle of punk and sort of goth, sort of that New Model Army style, I would say, sort of thing. They had some good tunes which I really like, Radio and
Liberate.
Liberate. I'm so in love with you.
Yeah,
some good tunes, but it was a Spartan month for new releases. That's it, really. That was your music. Kate Bush. We like Kate Bush.
What's not to like?
Absolutely. So there you go. That's your music for September '85. Dominated by Bowie and Jagger, shall we say? And them
still the fallout from Live Aid, isn't it? It's still, even in September, the fallout of Live Aid is still there. It's still happening.
Yeah, I think it is. So there you go. So we'll be back in a moment. Our final set of games for this part. We'll be looking at 3 more, so keep with us. Okay, and welcome back to part 3 of our roundup of the games. We're going to look at 3 more. Just before I do, in the break there, Graham familiarised himself with the Dilly Dillies. From Lavender,
and indeed there are dilly dillies.
Yeah, there are. So I wasn't wrong. There are dilly dillies in the song Lavender by Marillion. So there you go, dilly dilly. Okay, so what we're looking at, our first game. So we're coming back. We've got another game from Microprose, home of the simulation, and this game is Mig Alley Ace. I think one of the words in that title is wrong. Personally, and it ain't Mig and it's not Ali. So the first thing that I noticed about this, so this is it's another flight fight simulator. It's interesting that it's split screen. So it's two people, whatever. But the first thing I noticed was that it said 1984 on the title screen, which led me to think we're in, getting towards the end of 1985. We've looked at software from the 1984 and it's not that great. It's not as good as what's being put out these days. And so I was a bit like, okay. And yeah, that was pretty much well-founded. This is a really, really, really boring split-screen air combat game. There was different scenarios you could change, and for the life of me, I could not tell the difference between any of them. They just saw me flying around, trying to line up a plane, and I don't know if I was doing something wrong. This is a really good example of what you said earlier, sort of thing about trying to sort of wonder, what the different, you've had lots of green and lots of blue, very, very little else. This is a really good example of like, we've got green and blue and we can sort of move it around when you move left and right to simulate the ground shifting around. You line a plane up in your sights and you fire once. Now, I don't know if mine was broken, but I could never fire again.
No,
I could only let off one round of shots. I didn't know if I was supposed to reload. There was some, in the words of William Shatner, some flashing and blinking lights. But I didn't know what anything
flashing.
I didn't know what anything meant. I didn't know why they were flashing or blinking at me. I mean, it's relatively fast. Don't get me wrong. Something there's a speed. At least there's some speed like to the turning and the bobbing left and right and whatever. But it was so boring. It was so bland. This is twins. I don't know. Maybe it's better with two players again. Another one of them. But I don't think it would have been. I don't know. Did you get anything else from it?
No, I just came to the very quick conclusion with this. So I thought this is meant to be a two-player dogfighting simulation. So, you're in the air dogfighting a la Top Gun type idea. Awful graphics, really blocky and chunky, out of its time, out of its depth, not really fun or playable, just awful. And if I was going to play something like this, if I put it side by side with something like Skyfox, I know where my money's going. So it was just, it was just a game that was, I think, clearly released too late. And if I'd have had the choice, I wouldn't have released it. Oh, this was a Microprose game as well. So
yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
So I think my feeling this was just on a back catalogue item. They thought, well, we may as well put it out, which I don't like. I don't like it when games companies did that because it just feels like a cash and grab. So people trading on the Microprose name thinking, oh, well, Microprose normally do good stuff. Let me see what this is. And it's awful. No, I don't think it certainly didn't deserve, because it got, 60 odd, I think, in Zapped, and I don't think it deserved that.
No, it got 54.
Yeah, so I don't think it even deserved that.
It's
for me,
not,
this wasn't a fun, playable game for two players. It was, Summer Games 2's out. I know it's not Flight. I know it's not Flight Simulator, but if you're going to have a fun game for multiplayers, why would you choose this blocky monstrosity? Just go and play something like, and even if you want to play a dogfighting game where you're shooting stuff, go and play Skyfox.
I got more enjoyment from the closing ceremonies of Summer Games 2.
You wouldn't choose
this.
Just again, it's like if in a world where Pit Stop 2 exists, why would you buy Pole Position? In a world where Skyfox exists, why on earth would you play this rubbish? So
yeah, I have a feeling, and it was £10, wasn't it? $9.95.
Yeah, rip off.
This is premium price for the games back then. I would suggest my only sort of thing about this. It is this obviously I reckon got released in the US probably when it came out.
Yeah.
And then it somebody picked it up and then brought it over here with all the other Microprose games. So Kennedy approached this. We'll probably see others as well dotted about as they just sort of, all the Microprose games just get dumped over here. Some work, Kennedy approach has a really sort of interesting angle and a very strong aesthetic and choice about what it does. This is just bland, dull,
nonsense,
boring,
rubbish,
out of its time nonsense.
Rubbish.
Yeah, I think we've said enough about Mig Alley Ace. Like I said, it's certainly not Ace. Mig Alley Ace. So let's talk about something much, much better, and that is another sports game. So this is our second, eclectic range of sports to be sort of brought together under one umbrella. And this is the arcade conversion, the C64 conversion of the arcade title Hypersports, the sequel to Track and Field in the arcade from on fire Konami at the time, I guess.
Yep.
Konami were knocking out in the arcades. They were one of the big guns back then, weren't they? In the arcade, on with Capcom and Taito, I guess, or Tecmo, or whoever. I can't remember what the others were. I don't know.
Midway,
Williams, Midway, all these kind of big names, sort of knocking out these great arcade games. And Hypersports was no exception to that. It was a good choice, but it had some different kind of events to do. Track and Field. It was a really eclectic mix of sports. And let's not beat around the bush here, sort of thing. I'll come back to you in a minute, sort of thing, and just play my cards. This is a great arcade conversion. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely.
I put it. If it's not arcade perfect, this is pretty damn close.
Yep.
This is literally the arcade game in 64K.
Yep.
Pretty astonishing, really. And not only that, let's rewind. Let's go back. When this game boots up, what's the first thing that happens? That music.
Yeah.
And we could sit here and probably talk about 10 minutes about that music. It's a rendition of Chariots of Fire by Martin Galway. Mm-hmm. It's astonishing. It's still one of my favourite pieces of C64 music. And I was reminded of how good I liked it and how good it is when I listened to it on a pair of headphones coming straight out and got a real proper decent sound quality mix of it rather than from a 14-inch mono TV speaker that I usually used to have, sort of thing. Actually hearing it in a decent mix, that tune is incredible. There's so much depth to that tune.
There is.
It's astonishingly good. And, for those who don't know, Chariots of Fire was a film about Englishmen running on beaches, made in about 1982, 83. I don't know. It was an Oscar winner. It was about two Englishmen who were sort of competing against each other in some
running
old Olympics basically, so they were competing against you, and that's what Chariots of Fire was about. The Brits are coming, as we historically said at the Colin Welland, I think it was at the Oscars when we won some Oscars for it. Hey ho! And this piece of music is is it Vangelis?
Yes, it is Vangelis.
Yes. It is a Vangelis piece. It's one of those examples where the original's great sort of thing. This stands beside the original, not as a knockoff, not as an impersonation, but as a decent interpretation and reinterpretation of it in 3 channels on a SID chip. It's incredible. I don't know. You probably, I don't know. Do you like it? Do you think it's great?
It's astonishing. As soon as the game starts and you hear it, it's just as soon as it starts and you get the sort of the famous opening phrase. You just get that opening phrase. It's an astonishing conversion of the arcade. The music, even if it was mediocre, this music would set it apart because it's so damn good. It is brilliant. It was the SID chip suddenly becoming and showing how much power it had, and really utilising all 3 channels and really utilising the various ways that, because Galway had a really unique sound player. And it made unique Galway type sounds, as is evidence in all the things that he did. It has a uniqueness that makes it sound like him, as much as Rob Hubbard had his player, Dave Whittaker had his player, Galway had his player, and even now, I remember having a conversation with Ben Dalglish about Galway's player, which confused them all because it was just, he wrote it himself, I believe, and it did things that none of the other composers were doing with the SID chip and self-writing stuff and very fancy code behind it that made it sound like it did. That aside, it is a great piece of music anyway, and it's a really great version. So instantly you're in the zone with the game. It sets the tone for that game so perfectly that you're in the zone. The game has the visual panache to carry it over as well, right from where you choose your name in, and it's got that nice star sort of selector, reminding me of Rambo when you put your name in that when you die in Rambo, obviously. It had that real polish to it, and it was a great version of the arcade, and it inherited the one single fault with the arcade is that it was bloody hard. And that's that is the only fault, that if you want to see the later levels, you've got to get good at the original ones and just get good at them, and the shooting one is a bit hit and miss for everybody. Once you get it and you can do it, but they are quite tough, those, to get to the progression. And even when you get past that and you get to the I think it's the gymnastics vault jump after that, and after that, and getting to that, you do the rolls and the flips, but it's just great. It's great. It's as good as the arcade. What can you say? And that's something to be said. It's got great. Really nice,
really good and well animated graphics. There's some, the main sprite for the events is really good. It's a big chunky, big well animated athlete kind of guy. The swimming is really nice, that sort of split screen. Of each lane being in its own section. It works really well. It replicates every sort of mechanic pretty much that I can remember from the arcade. It may not have the speed sort of thing, but the swimming and the breathe. So you've got strategy. So it's waggle, but it's also strategy. There's also like you said, it does different things. So I got all the way through the events. So I played through all of them, and so the shooting is really. It's a timing. It's a reflex timing based thing. There's no waggling here. It's right, left, right, and then it gets faster as you do better. That's one of the things I really like about it. Sort of thing is that if you are doing really well, it gets harder. If you're doing poorly, it stays quite easy. There's a nice sort of difficulty. What games like something like Resident Evil 4 does with throwing more enemies at you, if you're doing well, or does less if you're doing badly. It's that kind of reading of how you're doing and sort of reacting to that. So that's quite nice. The horse, the vault is tricky. That is quite a hard one. The triple jump probably not as good as the one in Summer Games 2. It's a shame sort of thing this is coming out in the same month as Summer Games 2 almost, because it's kind of a little bit overshadowed, because if this came out in any other month, this would be your sports game, of choice, because there is, 6 decent events, and it's got that arcade feel to it, like you said, from the opening title screen, the stars, the range of events. The archery is really nice, because the archery is all based around timing, reading the wind, and things like that. The only real one that I was never a big fan of and is still quite tricky is the weightlifting, the last one.
Yeah.
And that's it. 6 events, but this was literally the arcade machine in 64K in your living room. Reading the review and something I wasn't aware of sort of thing. It's a big shame sort of thing. It's not 2-player, which is, I think, a strange omission.
No, I think that they had to sacrifice the 2-player part for it to be as graphically and as orally stimulating as it is. You can only get so much in 64K.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know what you would have cut sort of thing, or how they would have done it. I mean, there's only really the swimming that would have needed to be sort of represent 2 players. Everything else is, take it in turns anyway. But I could see, I imagine that machine is probably rammed to the gills with the code for that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a single load.
Because as well, not just the opening music, we've spoken about the music sort of thing, but all the in-game little tunes it is, when you get a world record, everything is just great. It's just an overall, this was Imagine, wasn't it? It wasn't Ocean, it was Imagine.
It was Imagine, yeah.
And Imagine obviously had gone down in flames.
Well, it was Imagine Play the Game.
Yeah, so, but, it was the same logo, let's face it.
Same logo, but different company.
Absolutely, because they were owned by Ocean, weren't they? Ocean picked up the name Imagine, but what had happened with Imagine previously, sort of thing, that exploded in a fiery, massive
lies,
Porsches and Cyclops and Bandersnatches, and obviously Denson Designs had splintered off from that. There's probably others as well, and so it was quite interesting that it had. That Imagine became this kind of, I think they became almost the place for the Konami conversions, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah, they probably got the license from Konami.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting sort of thing, because you would have these sort of official licensed, conversions, whereas now you just get the Konami game and it's be everywhere, wherever sort of thing. Back then it was these weird sort of conversions by Imagine, which wasn't Ocean, but was Ocean. And obviously Galway was the Ocean in-house composer. And so you had this kind of, this track record, because Ocean were a pretty decent software house, as we'll see in a bit, and releasing some really interesting software. Yeah, this is just a really, really good conversion that was probably one of it's like I said, it's a shame this is in the same issue as Summer Games 2, because it is, and it's a weird as well sort of thing, because it did get 90, but not a sizzler, because they note in the review that they got it really late, which is why there's no screenshots or anything. Again, such a shame, because it's such a looker. The graphics are great. If you can't get the arcade machine sort of thing, then play this. This is pretty much it. If you like these kind of games, if you like really good, strong home computer conversions of mid-80s arcade games, they don't come much better than this.
No, I agree. Definitely one of the best arcade conversions, I think.
I think so. It's only bettered, I think, by a couple of other, which would be from Konami Ocean. To get a bit further on, one of my favourite games of all time, in fact. We'll cover that at some point, I guarantee it. So let's round off this episode with our last game to look at, Kayak. You got much to say about Kayak?
No. For me, it's in the why does this game exist file. So it's a 3D-ish kayaking simulator. So in other words, you can see the tip of your boat. You're kind of going first-person styly down a very rudimentary-looking 3D environment. I hesitate to use the term 3D here, but it is kind of that viewpoint. It's so you're floating down. It's sort of okay-ish in terms of its speed, but it doesn't feel like you're careering down a ravine in a kayak. It just feels like you're sort of juddering around some kind of blocky-esque landscape that's varyingly painted with sort of very basic colours. The sound effects sound like someone's trying to suck milkshake up a straw, and it's just boring. It's just boring. It's a simulation of a thing that's again taking something very exciting and rapid and changing it into something not exciting and not rapid, and just was my comment. Ugh. Why?
I mean, I'm probably not quite as harsh on it. Maybe I put, although this might be damning with faint praise, I put not terrible kayaking sim. So I thought the 3D effect wasn't that bad, and was certainly better than others we've seen. And there was kind of a weird bit of solidity to the world. I don't know. There was something to it. It was better than something like Talladega. I know that's not saying much, but hey ho. I didn't have much to say about it. I mean, it's cheap. It's £2.50. It's the it's Creative Sparks range. I don't even know where they came from. To be fair, I was unaware of this range of software. I don't know if you were aware of them from back in 1985. I'd never Mastertronic. I knew of Firebird. I knew of Creative Sparks. Were you aware of them?
No. No,
I wasn't either. So this is a budget range, £2.50. I just put, so I expect your love for kayaking will be how much you will get out of. If you like kayaking and you like that, then playing it at home, it's better than Glider Pilot. Zapped gave it 61. I'm struggling to see why. Maybe the price was a bit of a factor in that. But yeah, it is exactly what it says. It's a 3D kayaking sim that is exactly what you'd expect from the C64 doing 3D game. There's no surprises here.
No.
Kayaking, it's not whitewater kayaking anyway. It's more placid river kayaking.
Yeah.
I keep saying the word kayak because it's an interesting word.
If anyone's into kayaking, they're not going to race for that simulation.
No, you just go play the kayaking bit of Summer Games 2, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Why would you? And yeah, I get that they try to do something clever, but it's only clever if it works, and it just doesn't work for me. To be fair, I don't think there's been a lot of kayak simulators ever since, so I'm guessing it's probably a genre that never needed a game.
Yeah, I can't actually think of any other kayak sims.
No.
So kayak.
Yeah.
No. Don't bother with it. It's leave it where it is. Probably moored or tethered to a jetty appears somewhere in the annals of history. I think it's where it needs to be.
Absolutely.
There we go. So that's our look at the games this week. We've obviously got more to come next week. What we're going to do right now, though, sort of thing, before we get to the roundup, is we're going to look at our first round of Crapverts. Now, that may be a bit of a misnomer in this one because adverts are getting a bit better, and so they're not as horrible as they were. So, people are starting to realise that we actually need to put some focus on these adverts and not just put crap in. Some are still crap, and some are just strange sort of thing. And so the first one we're going to look at is the advert for Beachhead 2. Now, the reason I've included this Beachhead 2 one sort of thing is that essentially this is the cover of Zap.
It totally is. It is the cover of Zap.
It is the cover of Zap, which I thought was incredibly weird sort of thing. I thought Zap have reviewed it. Oliver Frey's done this intro and they're like, you know what? That's way better than anything we could do. Just grab that. But for some strange reason, they've put it on a 3D green vector grid.
Yeah.
Which I can't for the life of me figure out.
That's incredible. That really is incredible. I don't know why they've done that, but I don't know. I don't know why they've done that. I guess it's so that it doesn't look like the cover of Zap.
but let's face it, three quarters of this page is the cover of Zap.
It is, but you know what? That's mad. But I suppose it's good for Oliver Frey. I guess they just thought, you know what? We're not going to get any better than that. Like you say, just use that.
Just use that. Absolutely. It looks great. Over 100,000 people captured the beachhead in 1984. Dare you return in 1985? And they're clearly playing on this. We talked about Rambo last time, and they're really playing on that. Their only hope was your promise to bring them back alive. It's like, okay, but I didn't really remember Beachhead 2 as being a rescue the prisoners and captives kind of game.
Well, no, it's not really, is it? It's a attack
I thought
the
you were
turret.
taking down a dictator.
Yeah, and then it's the only rescue bit is where you've got to stop them the injured people being murdered as they wander over a battlefield, essentially.
Yeah, the boring bit.
Yeah, so I think that's a little bit of a license there.
Yeah, they're obviously clearly playing on the Rambo fever at the time.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it's an interesting advert in the way that they take it. I've no idea that green background. It really it's just crap.
Just shouts kind of game world, doesn't it? It's green, laser grid.
Yeah, but in the middle is Oliver Frey's great artwork.
Yeah, well, fair play to him.
So fair play. Yeah, it's a strange one. Our next one is another. I don't know if this was actually an arcade conversion or whether it was just a home computer done. It might have been in the arcades. I don't know. Super Zaxxon, and it says Zaxxon is back. Is this the ultimate challenge?
So is this a sequel to Zaxxon? Is this another?
I don't know.
Must be, I guess.
I mean, it is a sequel to Zaxxon, but I don't know if it was in the arcade or whatever. But I've got a real problem with some of the perspective looks weird on this, and I don't remember. I mean, unless this is an addition for Super Zaxxon, but that the dragon is weird.
Yes, I agree.
Zaxxon is a game about flying through tech stuff in space. Why is there suddenly a fire-breathing dragon?
There must be one in the arcade or something. I mean, the challenges to your depth perception, aside from that weird sort of angular viewpoint they've drawn, which sort of makes no sense when you look at it. The longer you look at it, the more it hurts your brain.
Yeah.
But just weird. And I think that you fly up and down in that game, do you? Or is it all flying from top, sort of bottom to top? I don't know, because that makes it look like you can come back on yourself in there because the jet fighter is coming the other way.
Yeah, but all the screenshots, though, have you going, bottom left to top right, as per normal Zapped, so I don't know.
The other was maybe it changes, maybe it flips in the game. Who knows?
Top right to bottom left.
Yeah,
who knows?
what a challenge.
I don't like the font for the top bit.
No.
It's like, if you just showed me that, I would be thinking, oh, is this some kind of ninja game?
Yeah, and I think it's weird, that font at the top, because it is basically a sort of, karate challenge. That font must be called something, that typeface must be called something like, Kung
ninja.
Fu or Ninja or something. But even that word super that they've got on Zaxxon looks like it was added, and it's also in green, and everything else is blue. It's just stupid colorization.
Yeah, it is weird as well. And I also don't like as well that the way that the N has got a shadow.
Yeah, and why is it all caps at the top as well? Why is Zaxxon is back in normal, and then is this the ultimate challenge shouting at you?
I don't know. Shouting at you. And also, they've
highlighted
language.
the wrong word. Is this the ultimate challenge? Surely ultimate should be underlined there, really.
Is this the ultimate challenge?
Yeah, it's not. Is this the ultimate challenge? Is weird. It's weird to emphasize it that way.
You could try reading it by just emphasizing each different word. Is this the ultimate
is this
challenge?
Because though it could work for this, but challenge doesn't. Is this the ultimate challenge?
Challenge? The ultimate challenge? No.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. No.
Super Zaxxon, a strange advert. It looks like an amalgamation of ideas that don't really work.
No.
Our last one that we're going to look at for this part is a game we're going to look at in next week. So this is Rescue on Fractalis. Activision's first release from Lucasfilm Games. It proudly presents Hear What Jeff Minter Says, one of my all-time favourite. All right, cheers, Jeff. Stunning solid 3D visuals, the most amazing impression of flight through mountainous terrain. Look out for this one. I think it's ace. Then it's got that quote. Then it says it's from Zap64.
I don't know why it says Hear What Jeff Minter Says, because it's not even in speech marks, so it must be what he thought, essentially, and that's all kinds of grammatical craziness in there.
I can't make it out.
Why is the 999 so big? Why is the pound sign so strange? We may never know.
Well, it's an American company. They probably don't know what a pound sign looks like.
Well, they don't, because that's I'm not even sure what that is, what currency that is. It's 9.99 iglanos from whatever country the iglanos is. That ain't no pound.
There are other things I want to talk about on this advert. The fact that they've obviously used some kind of mishmash of models, real people, dolls, or whatever for the outside bit to make it look more realistic. So it's brown landscape with a flying saucer, a green beam, and it looks okay. What I've got a bit of a problem is I don't know what that hand's holding at the bottom.
It's a flight controller stick. It's just a bit dark and greasy, isn't it, to be really sure? So
at the bottom, there's you're obviously looking out of the cockpit, and you're looking at this guy running towards you. So if you've played the game or you've seen it, it's a 3D fly around, and so. But at the bottom, there's a pair of legs and a hand, all in shiny black
pleather. Pleather, yeah, that's pleather. That.
And it's grasping a joystic between its legs.
So it's just, you can't really see the joystick; you can just see its sheen. So it's potentially that means it might be lubricated, and that's as far as that controller ever needs to be shown.
Yeah, and I reckon if that guy who's running towards the cockpit saw that sort of thing, he'd probably turn tail and run the other direction. It's a strange advert. It's just a weird mishmash of puppetry and effect.
And why is the guy who's running towards the ship, why is his right hand glowing? We don't know.
He's also massive.
Yeah, he's massive, and he's got a fire fist about to shoot a fireball from his fist. It might be the glow from the flames, I suppose, but from the explosion to his right. But what the hey?
As a representation of the game, it's all right, sort of thing. Yeah. It's just a weird. It's just a strange advert when you see it. It's I don't know. It looks like it's something you see on Mystery Theatre 3000 or something. It's a strange thing. There you go. So there's our Crapverts. They'll all be up on the website, so you can have a look at them yourself and judge for yourself whether we're too harsh or not. That's it for the first part of September 1985. What games have we looked at today? We have looked at Skyfox, Rupert and the Toymaker's Party, Five-a-Side Football. We've looked at Kennedy Approach, Summer Games 2, Monster Trivia, Mig Alley Ace, Hypersport, and Kayak. A varied range of games. We heartily recommend some of them, as you can probably guess. We'll be looking at more games in the next part. So join us for that, where we'll be knocking a ball around the Open with Nick Faldo. Nick Faldo plays the Open. We will a wizard in Merlin. We've got a cricket face-off, which is something you really don't want to miss. I do, having played those games.
Yeah.
Ian Botham's Test Cricket versus Graham Gooch's Test Cricket, and we find out if the Great American Cross Country Road Race is really great. On that note, I've been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Reddings.
And this has been Zapped to the Past. Join us next week and we'll have more games for you. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, sights, sounds and news from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zapped 64 magazine published at the time. We will be back next week with another podcast, so do please join us. Until then, please head over to zappedtothepast.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. You will also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram under Zapped to the Past. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Reddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zapped 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe and see you next time.